few minutes. We're just doing a little bit of a mic check. Check. James, go ahead and...
Checking the microphone right now.
Oh, hey. Check.
Yeah. Check. Testing mic.
Hello, this is my microphone.
Hello.
You can hear it.
All right. I'm gonna call him Jameson. You James over there.
All right.
We have two
That's
J's.
fine. Yep.
Sounds good.
Nice.
We have two jams here.
We'll get there.
Don't get confused.
Ooh, good question. We're already starting.
I call raspberry, actually. That's going to be mine.
I'm here for schnozberries.
Schnozberry.
Schnozberry.
I'm a
Taste like
bumbleberry.
It
schnozberries.
tastes like schnozberries.
Gross.
You're welcome. It's the tone I'm setting.
Ooh, yeah.
You're welcome.
How's everyone doing on the Sunday of DragonCon? Everyone all right? You're here.
Killing it.
You're here.
You're
Good
awake?
job.
Yay.
You're
You
awake,
made it?
sort of, maybe. That would be the word to describe me right now. I am
That word is too
cohesive.
big.
Oh. I'm not.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't know what you're talking about.
I would describe my Sunday as both brittle and jelly-like for some reason.
Wow.
You know?
It's a lot of texture.
That's how my bones and muscles feel.
Very
But are you
visceral.
good on toast?
Right, exactly.
I don't
So
know.
we all like our
Don't
James on
Raspberry.
toast.
Yeah, we
test
all
that.
like a good James on toast, is all I'm saying.
Oh,
test
let me
that.
do this. That one. Hello. Just testing out this. Also, before we get started, let me go ahead and go over this magical thing right here.
Oh.
I want you to do something for me, good sir. Throw it at me. Thank you. That didn't hurt. Don't worry about it. If you get binged by this, it's probably not going to hurt you.
If you shake it too much, it deactivates the mic.
Okay, got it.
So you keep shaking it, and it stops recording your voice.
Don't shake.
Got it.
Don't shake
I will
it too
stop
much.
shaking the mic. So says my audio overlords. Also, just like this gentleman did, just past it. Like that.
Aha.
Don't bing it. It will hit the ceiling, then hit somebody, and go somewhere you don't want it to go. We do not want that. Is everyone cool on that? Everyone good on that? Excellent.
Sweet.
I think we're gonna go, since I'm already out walking around and a little antsy in my pantsy here. I'm gonna go ahead and get started.
Woo.
Let's do it. You can come in.
You can come in. We're just getting started right now.
Please come
More
in.
the merrier.
Hi.
More the
Please come
merrier.
in.
More the merrier. All right. Ooh, we got latecomers in.
Welcome.
Yes, come in. Take a seat.
Welcome.
You're just in time.
Give that a good.
The
Yeah.
sacrifice
Give
has
that a
not
good yank.
begun.
It will come on down.
Yeah,
Thank
sacrifices don't actually start for another 20 minutes.
That's right.
so
Prepare
You're
yourself.
good. You're okay.
fine. You're on
here
time.
For it.
You. All right, everyone. Hello. Welcome to creating digital media for your tabletop game. I am a panelist and your moderator, Matthew Malice, and these are my lovely panelists here. Hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Yeah, that's the energy I want to see. I hope everyone's having a good time at DragonCon. Everyone having fun? Excellent. Cool. So let's go ahead and get started because we got a lot of ground to cover because you're obviously interested to understand what the heck you do by trying to stream your favorite things over the internet. That takes a lot more know-how than you think. It's not as easy. So we're going to do introductions over here. We have Jameson S. Elkhorn.
Hi, I'm Jameson. I'm part of the Dungeons Randomness podcast, if you've ever taken part in that. Thank you very much. I also handle their publishing arm, which is the non-digital content, and publish my own comics and things like that.
Nice.
Yes, hello and welcome. All right, and then we got Alvord. I'm going to butcher his last name, and I apologize.
That's
Alvord Povilaitis.
Povilaitis, yeah, good.
Yay!
You did it. Yeah.
I'm from the podcast With Game First. We're a board game podcast. I am a longtime gamer, and I have designed board games as well. So.
All right, welcome. Thank you. We'll go right over here to Tiffany Alvord.
Hello. I am Tiffany Alvord. I am a producer and player and GM and a lot of other things for the podcast North by Northquest. So we are a storytelling podcast that uses Dungeons and Dragons.
Yay! We like rolling them d20s.
Yeah.
All right, right over there, the little red dot over there.
Hey friends, I'm Little Red Dot. Some people know me as Chelsea as well. I'm a freelance Twitch streamer. I mostly do indie tabletop RPGs on my channel, but I also work for a slew of other larger networks on Twitch as well, tabletop networks, and I help with production for Gen Con's 3 Twitch channels as well on an annual basis. So I do a lot of Twitch streaming.
She's also on my podcast.
I'm also on the North by Northwest podcast.
Fancy, and the last man at the end is James Joe's
Stiver.
Stiver.
It's
Sorry,
easier if
he's
you
the
just say
last-
Holy Stiver and then everyone knows the song.
Stiver.
Holy Stiver!
This song makes no sense.
This song makes no sense, but I'm singing it in. All right, I'm done. My name is James Stiver, and I hesitate to say producer whenever people say producer. I just say mafia boss because it feels like it's more.
Way more
way more
accurate.
It adds it's more accuracy to it. I'm the mafia boss for the Loot and Dagger podcast. Thank you. I'm also on Stellar Arcanum podcast as well. If you like that, if you're into that kind of thing.
They do the D&Ds as
We
well.
do the D&Ds. It's all a tabletop podcast.
D&D.
We do all the D&Ds.
Yes.
D&D. Sorry, there's a musical thing that's starting to get into me.
Yeah.
As I said, my name is Matthew Malice. I am the basically host, producer, editor, everything else for the Polyhedron podcast. We are an RPG discussion podcast, so we don't just do D&D. We don't just do one game or we talk about the culture of role-playing. I'm also the owner of Metahedron Studios, a small, and by small I mean one-person up-and-coming RPG development company. So yeah, that's me. So let's get right into it. The first thing we kind of need to go over, now that we've done the introductions, is to talk about why we're here. This is about creating taking your passions, your role-playing games, welcome.
Welcome.
Yes, come in.
Hello. Oh God. Taking your passions, taking the things, your board games, your tabletop role-playing games, card games, even some people have talked to me about card games, and putting it out on the internet. And that's what I want to define at the beginning is what tabletop gaming means. There are a lot of different things. For me, when I was growing up, tabletop gaming meant role-playing games, pen and paper, all that fun stuff. But what didn't cover board games? It didn't cover Warhammer 40K, tabletop miniature games, that kind of stuff. But that has really sprung up in the last 10 years of getting sort of your passions out there and getting people on board with it and sort of rallying behind those passions and getting people interested. So I think we can go over, since we have the little basics of what tabletop gaming is, let's go over just like how you guys got into it and what you wanted to sort of get out of it and give it to, what you wanted to give the audience.
Sure. Yeah. So I guess I'm in sort of a unique situation as far as this panel goes because I came to the podcast that I'm a part of as a fan initially and eventually joined the cast of the show, which was kind of rad because people that I had been listening to for years became peers for me. So really most of what I do is just show up. Show up and play a game and have fun and then people react to it later on, which is a lot of fun. But I've tried to take a proactive role in that and sort of do as much as I can with it. So
yeah, you said you're doing more of the production sort of media arm of it.
Yeah. So since joining the cast, I've sort of been helping the show Dungeons and Randomness with they've kickstarted their setting book, which is going to be coming out pretty soon. I'm editing and publishing that with them. And so we're kind of taking what started as a podcast 7 years ago and turning it into a setting book which anybody can take and play at their own home games. So you can listen to it and then you can go and take that and make it your own thing. So that's part of what I'm doing.
Cool.
That's so cool.
Edward?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm a longtime gamer, and me and a bunch of friends just love playing board games. So we decided, why not do a podcast? So there's 5 of us all together on the panel, and we decided, playing games and then recording a short review of them. And in my end of it, we all take on like separate jobs. Well, it'd be not just being on the show itself, but from my end, I take care of the technical part. Another panelist does the editing. Another one does more of the promotion, so on and so forth.
Oh, very cool, very cool. So you've had a little bit of experience in a little bit of everything as far as production, but luckily he's fortunate that he has other people to share the load. And we're going to get into that in just a little while. Go right ahead, Tiffany.
Yeah, perfect. So I'm sure most of you, if you're into this whole thing, have heard of the Adventure Zone. The McElroys, yeah, we're all like, yes, I know.
Of course.
So I was a big fan.
I might have heard of them.
Just
Maybe.
a small
I think.
podcast,
A wee one.
So I was super into it, but I have played a lot of Dungeons and Dragons before, but my husband hadn't. So I made him listen to the podcast to try and get him to play with me. And after like listening for a while, he looked at me. He's like, we could do this, right? I was like, yeah, we could totally do this. We could totally just make a podcast. And that kind of was the spark of the idea. But a lot of what has kept us going, because I'm sure we'll touch on this, is like the idea is really easy. The continuation of it is not. But what has kept us going is making those connections with others, not just fans of the shows, but fellow creators, and really building a community of people who are just as passionate and who are just as into it to keep you kind of like motivated and going. And so a lot of it has been community building as our main foundation for the show.
Would you say that's sort of like your main, like you said, motivation? That's what you want. You want to build a community with the things you're creating.
Yeah, it's like really just bringing people together, because I think a lot of things that we love about tabletop is that it does bring you together with other people. It's like it's so collaborative, and we really focus on that collaboration side of things with our story. So we play Dungeons and Dragons, but we don't focus really heavily on the mechanic of it. We focus a lot on the ability to tell stories and the ability to bring people together into a world. And for part of that, we homebrew, so we create a lot of our own settings within it. But yeah, that community, that sense of like togetherness is really a big part of why we do it.
Very cool. Would you like Little Red Dot or Chelsea?
You can call me either. Chelsea, Little Red Dot. I also go by Dot. I have a bajillion. Just call me something. It's
All
fine
right.
as long as
Dot-
it's not.
Dot
Just
it
do
is.
Dot. You know,
Yeah,
not
just do
crew
Dot.
I'm
It's
sure
easy.
yeah, Dot is easy. You can just call me Dot. So I got started, actually, I was an actor first, and I tell people that I'm a digital storyteller. That is what I do. I tell stories in a digital format. So I started out as an actor. David and Tiffany reached out with this crazy, they're like, you want to play some D&D behind a mic? I was like, yeah, okay. That sounds great.
We did theater together, so I was
we
like,
did
you're
theater
perfect.
together, and
Come
so
here.
but I was finding that my passion for acting was dwindling. Theater wasn't working for me, and about the same time we started the podcast, I got invited onto the Encounter Roleplay Network to join their open community game, and I did it once, and I became obsessed. I game about 30 hours a week live. Outside of my full-time job, and I got to a point where there is only so much Dungeons and Dragons one human can play. I'm gonna be honest, like I was just burned out on D&D, and I said, I love the idea of telling story, I love it doing it collaboratively, but I need a space where I can tell my stories, the stories I wanna be telling. So I took what was a cosplay building channel originally when I launched my Twitch, and I shifted it to be more of an open storytelling. So I now have community games. I only play Dungeons and Dragons on it once a month. So everything that I play is fresh to the market indie RPGs, or I'm writing my own content using open-based games like Fate. It has a big home on my channel. A lot of Evil Hat products have a Evil Hat, I love you, has a big home on my channel. So I like to tell stories from using tabletop RPGs from odd perspectives. Things that you're just not going to find on Wizards of the Coast channel. Things that you're not going to find on just any old D&D podcast.
Yeah.
So I guess that's kind of how I got started, and how it's grown into this giant thing where I'm making half my income, and I'm getting to tell stories with people from all over the world.
It's like
And also
showcasing stuff.
Also, you're kind of basically also a producer too. You've
Yeah.
gotten
Oh,
into
yeah.
the point of it where she does more of the back end stuff. She's helping others make the content, which is very good
It's
for
also
you.
a totally thing too. Yeah, I mean, I play on a lot of other networks, but the Little Red Dot channel is a one woman thing, and we'll talk about that, what it means to like just do it by yourself.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No. And James at the end.
Yeah, so I'm going to be completely honest. I love everyone else's stories here, but I got into podcasting because I really wanted to lock my friends into like a contract. Because
Always be
the
my
older you
friends.
get, timing, everyone has a reason why they can't play or something, right? So, but if you're on a podcast, like, well, now you're going to let everyone else down, aren't you? You can't do that. Letting
Sign
me
your soul
down,
away.
you do that daily.
So what I hear is guilt.
It's guilt.
Sign your soul away to this
Sign your
podcast, so
soul
we'll play
away to the
together.
Because I love it. I mean, I'm also I used to be in bands. I've always been in some form or fashion in entertainment, and there's just something different about telling a story, writing a song, and presenting it out there. And it was just, but that's one of the reasons. I can say that's a flowery way to say, that's how I started to think through the podcast thing. But really, it was also to force my friends to play with me, and it worked. It worked so great.
The dreaded curse of all role players is scheduling.
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 It's the dreaded curse of all production.
It's actually the level 20 bad guy.
Yeah, actually the
for
worst
sure.
thing. But if you notice, every single one of these people have said up here that a couple things that I want to point out. First, they're all passionate. They're all up here. They want to do something. They love what they're doing. That's critical. If you're really thinking about that, I like this role-playing game, I like this board game, I like this card game, I like this Jenga tower. I love this Jenga tower, and I want to show the world my Jenga power.
I will listen to a podcast about Jenga towers.
I would listen.
Completely
I'll play
honest with you
Dread.
on that. Yeah.
Dread
And
uses
I'm
a
just
Jenga
like
tower.
the quiet silence of it then pulled out.
What happened? What happened?
The
Audio
anticipation.
gold.
Oh, no, that,
Okay.
please put that on a stream. Don't podcast your Jenga tower.
Someone we don't have here, I already know of people who, and someone who was doing that at DragonCon up in the gaming room was streaming live his pinball game.
Heck
He has,
yeah.
he
That's
has an
cool.
entire rig where he set it up so he could stream and talk to his chat, and his chat could see the entire pinball layout, so they could see what he was doing while he was doing. So passion is key,
Yeah.
because you're about to, if you really want to do it, you're about to go into the deep end. Also, another thing that you'll notice for every single one of these people up here, they all had to do multiple things. You're not
Yep.
just creating content.
Yeah.
You are learning entire new skill sets. Like
Yeah.
just
Absolutely.
and actually, we're gonna segue into that point, and we're gonna start on that end and go this way. Start with James down there. So, what was the one skill set that you had to learn that you're like, "Grr, I don't want to
yeah.
learn this, but you had to?
So
Yeah.
luckily in my background, I used to record like metal bands, right? It's not the same, and I realized that. I realized that because I was like, no, you know what? I can record stuff. I can edit it. That's fine. I think the patience to listen to yourself, if you're recording, if you're releasing a 1 hour episode, you're really listening to yourself in that 1 hour episode, probably 3 hours.
Minimum.
At minimal
there.
when you're editing it. So it's that constitution to keep doing it and to make sure it still sounds pretty good. And I think for me it was mixing down audio and just voices, and only worried about the voices, getting the differences between compression and limiters and all those things.
All the technical bits.
All the
All
technical
the
bits. And I think that was the one skill set I was like, I thought I had, because you'll think, oh, I know how to do this, and that was it. It wasn't going to be any of the DMing or whatever, which I probably should work on, but
Wing it.
you just wing it. So yeah, I would say that was one of the bigger ones. Is actually the fine tuning of, if you're doing a podcast specifically, it's all voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Learn how to edit voice.
Learn how to edit voice. All right, Dot.
I can go off on the spiel of like OBS, but I actually quite enjoyed that. What I found, especially for the Twitch side of things, is not everybody can tune in live. And Twitch has this lovely thing where your video goes down after like 30 days or something like that, your VOD. So I had to start a YouTube channel. It was not something I ever considered doing, but when you've got audience from all over the world, not everybody can tune in at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Yeah.
So I had to get to the point where I could learn to edit video and get it to YouTube in a timely fashion, so that I didn't lose my audience who was looking for that content coming out on a regular basis. So I think for me, the big skill that I learned was time management, getting your stuff out on time, and learning to edit video, which was not something I ever thought I would be doing.
I feel your pain.
Right?
Yeah. All right, Tiffany, what did you learn?
So I'm going to kind of two-part answer this. So my husband is my co-producer, and he's also our audio editor. And he comes from an acoustics and an audio background, but from engineering. So a lot of what he definitely had to learn was doing creative editing. And I will say, you don't necessarily have to be the best editor. You don't have to go so hard in production, because actual play is a whole side of things, but you are still going to have to do some editing. So get used to hearing your voice. Be okay with the fact that you think you sound terrible and really dumb. And after about 2 years, it won't bug you as much, but just like embrace that. So his was very much like learning that creative side of what he already knew. For me, I come from a theater and a production background. I was a stage manager. So it was less about making sure I knew how to organize our group, but more figuring out how to organize a constantly going production. So like theater, it's like I do a production, I'm there for 6 months, it's done, we move on. But we've been going for over 2 years now, and like things will constantly pop up that you're like, I thought I knew how to address that. I don't know how to address that. Or like someone's like, hey, your thing is down on iTunes, but it's here on Stitcher, and like something weird is going on. Now you have to try to figure out like RSS feeds, and like it's really strange. So it's kind of like being able to constantly evolve what your production looks like and how you do it. And just understanding that you're putting out a production. It's a product. It's entertainment. It's not just recording your friends at a table playing a game. It's being live to a person. Even if you're a podcast and they listen later, like there's production, but you're live to an audience and you have to constantly think about the audience. Say people's names. Always say people's names. Like, please don't say, you do this. Who is you?
I can't see your face.
I can't see you. So yeah, it's really keeping that production mentality the whole time, even when having fun and playing a game.
I will slightly asterisk her thing just because that part also depends on what you're trying. Your goal is for what you're trying. Are you just out there to get people passionate about what you're doing? Great. You don't need to have that sort of super mentality of the audience first.
It all depends on what your goal is, but at the end of the day, if you're putting it out there, there is an audience. And I think you still need to remember that, but to what degree you interact, or like to what degree you post-production everything depends on what you want.
Right.
But you do have to remember people are listening or watching.
Yeah.
They're there.
It's going out to the public.
Yes.
And it stays there. Once it's on the internet, it's there. It will almost never go away. So keep that in mind.
Yeah. It's forever.
Moving right down the line, Edward.
Well, one of my first concerns was being part deaf. I was kind of worried about the audio element myself, but that didn't end up being that much of a concern. And I had a whole panel. So somebody else is doing the editing, so I don't have to worry about that too much. And plus, one of us is a long-term podcaster. He's on the podcast Skeptic Guide to the Universe. And he's been podcasting for many years.
Yeah, forever.
I was on a panel with him last year.
All the learning curves, you were there telling you just do this. This is how it's done. It's like, all right, cool. For me, the thing I had to learn, because it's going to be my responsibility, is running a website. Because it's a podcast, your RSS feed is what you're streaming on. So understanding what the technical requirements of doing that, how to host media correctly,
Libs and hosting,
is
you
what
guys.
I had to learn and make sure it was done right. And I thought, I'm a computer geek. I can handle this. Well, it's actually more challenging than you think.
Yep.
Yeah.
And also, I'm going to interject here. Dragon Con, the digital media track, is being sponsored by Blueberry and Libsyn.
Libsyn is wonderful. We use it.
Yes. So
Blueberry
give a
and
round of
Libsyn.
applause to all of our sponsors here, Dragon Con Digital Media. Yay.
You need them.
Yeah,
Yes.
you need a hosting.
They
It's a
helped
lot
us out. They've been really great to the digital media track, so thank you very much. All right, anything more, Ed?
Yeah, the only other thing is on the audio stuff, when you're speaking to your audience, as we are an audio podcast, we don't have any video, and we're playing a board game, which is a
interesting.
very visual thing. So that was one of the challenges we came up with, and we had to always keep in mind, we had to describe with audio the experience of playing the game without having to being able to show what the game was. And that was something to keep in mind of your audience, and also keep in mind your media that you're on.
Yeah, you have to be very descriptive when you're doing audio only. And like you have to keep that in mind. That's impressive to play a board game on audio only.
Yeah.
That's cool.
We thought it would be a cool thing.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Our podcast calls that audio gold when we do something that, hey, look at this thing, guys. Isn't it great? Oh, that's great. It's like, yeah, the audience can't see what I'm holding up.
Yeah.
Audio gold. So, Jameson.
So from the perspective of more a player than a producer, the thing that was, I guess, trickiest to learn in the context of the audio format is the temptation to cut tension with humor. So occasionally, like, if anybody's played any kind of role-playing game that has kind of a serious moment, if you're sitting around the table, somebody will crack a joke and kind of cut the tension because it gets really uncomfortable. When you're doing a show for an audience, you can't always do that. They're there for that tension. So there's been many times I've had to hit the mute button for myself so that I don't crack a joke and break the tension.
But you still cracked a joke, right? Is what you're saying?
I
it's just
say it.
It's just not on there.
I just shout it
Yeah.
at home. But the temptation to break that tension is something that when you play at home, you crack a joke and everybody laughs because you're playing your own tabletop game. But when you have an audience, you can't do that. You have to let it ride out, and that is actually hard to do sometimes, depending on the situation. So that's something that I don't know if I resisted learning it, but I was surprised to have to learn it. I suppose.
Yes.
How to just sit in the tension
Just,
of the moment.
you just got to stew in it and just be like, oh, this is awful.
This is
Yeah.
But I'm here, so.
But it's also kind of
It's really
glorious.
cool.
Like there's a really lovely thing called vulnerability
Yeah.
in storytelling. It's what we live for. It's why we love our favorite TV shows. It's why we love these movies or these moments and we hang on to them. Like it's so
Yeah.
hard to be the person that's sitting in the vulnerability trying to give that to an audience, but the outcome is so worth it.
It's hard to voluntarily put yourself in that position.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Because like you watch it on TV, and you know they're actors, they're following the script, and they're there to do that thing. When you're doing it live and you're essentially improvising it, it's hard to keep yourself in that position.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much for sharing that, sort of those things you have learned. Let's move on. As you can see, they've all told sort of like the narrative, like you have the game you want to show, you have the thing you want to broadcast out. However, it gets very technical.
Yes.
And that's actually one key thing. So while we move through this conversation is, so you have the game, you have the thing you want. Where do you start? What do you have to do? What are the basics? Well, first off, you got to figure out what because of the nature. If you're doing a board game, do you want it to be visual or do you want it to be audio, like Ed over here? Or do you want it to be on YouTube so people can see faces? That happens a lot. A lot of people Skype in together and record it and shift it to YouTube or Twitch. Or are you audio only and you want to deal with audio? Those are all considerations that you have to have when you do these sorts of things. And then there's the raw technical aspect, the RSS feeds. Like we've all probably have some horror story and some confusion. Thankfully, we live in a very modern age where a lot of you can almost go to any website. I use Squarespace. They do not sponsor this at all. Is that Squarespace has a very easy way of putting an RSS feed up onto iTunes and podcatchers and all that stuff. So that's a small hurdle that can easily be overcome nowadays. Get some war stories back from the early aughts. Oh my God.
Yeah.
So let's go over what are some of the key technical aspects that these audience members, when they want to do something, what are they going to need? What do you feel that is critical that they have an understanding of? And this time I'm gonna go in the middle and do it randomly.
Perfect.
Tiffany.
Perfect. So I think the first thing you have to decide is what medium are you doing? Like, how are you putting this out? Do you want it to be Twitch? Do you want it to be podcast only? Do you want it to be podcast and YouTube? Like, how you put it out is going to help you make your first big decision of what you're doing. But I will say that no matter what, I think you should invest in a decent microphone.
Yes.
Even if you're streaming, it just makes such a difference to listen to it. If you are podcasting, please, for the love of God, invest in decent microphones because we all have to hear it.
Yes.
And it's we've all heard that Crackle podcast. No one wants it.
And not one microphone for the table.
Yeah.
Unless you've got a really, really snazzy one. Like if you've got 5 people,
really
you
small.
may have to invest.
Yeah. So we also know if you're in person or not in person makes a big difference. So we play in person at one table. So we have a 8-channel board, like an audio board, and we plug in standing mics just like these into it. So we have to invest in the board, the mics, the mic stands, the pop filters, the foam cover, just so that we can have that clearest audio and it records direct into our local computer. But we also have guests who aren't local. And we use a program called Zoom and they call in. It's like way more stable Skype. And we have them record their audio locally, send it to us, and we edit everyone with their own channel, which is also its own technical hurdle.
Yep.
So for podcasting, you definitely want to look into your microphones. If you have more than 2 people there together, you're probably going to need a board that you can plug.
That is critical because
stuff in.
of the idea of if you want to do high quality, if you want to really get up there and you're really trying to sell this as a thing that you want to do, even if it's part-time, as all of us pretty much do, I think, you're going to have to invest some money. You're going to have to figure out how to get some revenue, seed money somewhere, somehow, and really do your research on the equipment that you're using and the technical aspects of it so that you can hit your goals. Because anyone can, no offense, but there's a lot of podcasts out there, and you have to differentiate yourself in some way, be it the content that you're actually projecting, or part of that is the quality of that.
Quality will make a difference.
Yes.
People will tell you can just use your iPhone, you can start a podcast, and while that is true,
technical
quality will make a difference for your listeners to stick with you. We have just found that that's a part of it, and as part of RSS feeds, we use Libsyn, and they're super easy and great. So I'm happy they're sponsoring because I love them.
Yep.
So
Q&A is not until a little bit later, but we already had a question, so let's go ahead.
I'll happily answer.
Sorry, I just wanted to ask about recommendations for microphones.
Sure.
Do you have any recommendations for specific microphones or even cameras?
Yeah, so I don't have anything for cameras. I'll let people who do video answer that. But if you are just one person and you're recording just yourself, the Yeti Blue is a really great starter mic. It's like $100 or so.
There's a key word there. Starter
mic. It's a good. I wish my husband was here because he could answer all of these like really technical questions. So feel free to grab my card and email me. We'll get you all your answers. But what we use with our board are the Shure 51s, and they look just like these, but it has an on-off switch. Actually, these are Shures right here. These are SM58s, but we use the 51s. But that does require the like mic cable, a stand, foam ball, pop filter, and a board, like an actual like mic board to plug it into.
There's a
It's
mixing
not
board right
a mixer
here.
board, yeah.
Yep.
But the Yetis are USB port.
Yeah. So it's a lot easier to direct in.
Yeah.
James, you guys use condensers too, right?
We actually started off with condensers, but I mean, we actually found this is one of those weird worlds where do you record makes a huge difference
Yeah.
too, as far as sound and all that. So if you're recording where we used to record in a kitchen and we had all these, I mean, $300 a person condenser microphones, that's picking up so much background noise that it sounded like crap. I'm like, this is collectively
so
like
nice
a $2,000 setup. Why are you sounding? Why are you sounding like my bathroom?
Yeah.
I don't understand.
Your acoustics make a
So
really big
acoustics
difference.
make a big difference. We swapped those out for dynamic microphones, much like these. We use Sennheiser, I believe E609s. I don't know the exact model, but yeah, there we go.
Nailed it.
I did a side-by-side battle with them and Shure, and actually I liked Sennheiser better.
Yeah. So wherever you're recording, you want soft surroundings. So anything that will help dampen sound. We record in a room, not our kitchen, but we put a blanket over our table, and that made a huge difference in helping to dampen the reverberation of sound.
You'd be amazed at what your voice bounces off of. This is
Yeah.
something people don't tell you. You don't learn this till somebody tells you. Like, your voice bounces off of every flat surface, wall, ceiling, floor, and any table that you're a part of. So if you are sitting at a bare table with a wooden floor and
With
like a high
flares.
ceiling, it is a chamber and it will sound like a cave. So by doing something by like adding a blanket to a table, you've immediately dampened sound. So instead of the sound hitting something and coming back and picking up everything, what you're doing is it's hitting this blanket and staying here.
It stops.
It stops right here.
Yeah.
And
So
the
you asked about
sound is cleaner.
microphones. That's why it's not such an easy answer, because you can also make yourself sound a whole lot better with some nice sound.
Yeah, with
Soundproofing
grandma's
is-
blanket on your dining room table,
Yeah.
like
Specifically grandmother's blanket.
Yeah.
That's what you do.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, moving blankets are good.
A quick piece of advice. Hi, I'm Andrew from the digital media team. If you're looking for audio equipment, check out your local pawn shops. Bands fail all the time.
Oh, that's
And
smart. I had not even thought
smart.
about
People
that.
sell off their stuff, and you can get some great equipment for less money than if you're buying new.
Bless you.
That's smart.
And if you happen to be a local to Atlanta, there's a store called Music Go Round, and I know they've got them in other states, but they're specifically for used gear, mixers,
nice.
microphones,
Why am I not taking notes?
cables. Music Go Round. It's a chain of used gear stores.
Cool. Music
You
Go
can
Round.
find a lot of equipment there. Like I said, there's one in Duluth.
Oh, okay. Cool.
But wherever you're from, there may be one near you. So check that out too.
Yeah, that's cool.
The key is a lot of this equipment is built.
Yep.
A lot of this equipment is built to last, right?
Yeah.
It's built for performing musicians. So just because somebody else doesn't have a need for it anymore doesn't mean that it's necessarily
bad.
going to be busted.
Yeah.
So,
that,
go ahead.
That's a long
was-
answer
yeah.
to your to your technical
I know
question. but
already that a lot of you guys have a lot of questions, or like, I got specific questions.
Yeah, we'll get
and then we'll
there.
probably open the Q&A very shortly, just because this stuff gets very technical and very specific to what you're trying to do. We could be here for a little, like multiple days, telling you every little detail that would be necessary for you to like answer all your questions without you asking us. So, real quick, rapid fire, because I do want to get to this Q&A. Let's go over some of the equipment or stuff that you would specifically would advise for people to use or look into. And we'll go to Edward here, since he has I think one of the more unique ones that we've talked about so far.
Yeah.
So for us, when we actually play our games not live,
Right.
so we do record that session with just a table mic, but we only use little clips from that, so it doesn't impact the quality of the audio for the whole thing. We just like a funny moment from that game. But we actually require, when we record, we're all in separate sites. So we do something of a Skype in a way so we can hear each other, but we record locally.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you always don't want to record. Don't rely on Skype to record your audio.
No.
'Cause anything over VIOP is okay for talking. No, you want to talk to Europe, fine. But you don't want to record that and podcast that.
No.
Absolutely not.
Always record your audio locally as well.
Yeah.
Also, don't rely on it because it might crash on you.
Same thing for your video.
Yeah. Same
Also,
with video.
there's a big thing between just having a normal stereo channels. If you're even remotely familiar, like most people who stereo, which means both audio is going to same audio is going in both ears, or do you have mono, but everyone's on their own channel, aka you can edit just their dialogue rather than just the whole dialogue together in a stereo signal. That's a little more technical, but if anyone understands that, you kind of get what I'm talking about. Well, you, Jameson?
I use a $20 condenser mic.
Solid.
That's right.
Do you guys record together or separate?
We're all separate. We actually record over Skype, so we're not following the advice that was.
So take this back to your family.
Well,
record your audio locally.
Yeah. So Skype is the devil, though, and we fully acknowledge that. But that's what we're using for now. But I would say that, as in addition to the audio equipment that you use, and be aware, take consideration for the if you're playing like a role-playing game, the tabletop that you're using. If you're not all in the same room, you need to think about Roll20, Fantasy Grounds, anything else like that. Take a hard look, and I won't recommend one because it depends on your needs. It completely depends on the game you're playing and who you're playing it for. But it's worth a hard look at every option you have before you get into it, for sure.
Yeah,
Totally
I think
agree.
Just with Roll20 and Fantasy Grounds and all that, decide if you're using visual aids or not.
Yeah.
So we don't, because we want to make sure we describe everything.
Well, we're also at a table together.
We are, but we still don't use.
We don't use maps or
and
minis. We're theater of the mind, but it is important. Are you in person or are you not? I mean, I'm on Twitch. I play with people from all over the world. We use Roll20.
Yeah.
We use Roll20. It's simple. It's easy. Most people can pick up it pretty quickly. I've used Fantasy Grounds before for a multitude of campaigns as well. But I would say, I think I put a totality of $100 down when I launched my Twitch channel, between a camera and a mic. Camera, mic, and a light. I needed a light.
You should be lit.
Yeah, make sure you're lit. So you can start very low, and then over time, I've kind of upgraded. Right now, I'm using a dynamic mic as well. I USB straight in. I do not use a condenser. I don't know why. I just like my sound better coming out of a dynamic mic. I originally
It's like a guitar for artists.
Yeah.
You just gravitate to a certain
I don't know why.
microphone, and you just like the way you sound.
And then for my camera, I heard a question about camera. I just use your basic webcam. I started out with a 720. I've upgraded to a 1080. It makes a difference. Yeah. When you are putting your face on a screen, whether it's just me like playing a video game or DM prepping, or if I'm on Zoom with a bunch of other people and we're playing a game, the quality, especially you as the host, has to be good, and you need to look good. You need to light yourself, and I'm not talking about horrible overhead light. Like I have one of the like circular pop lights on my face. Some people use a green screen behind them. I don't, just because I don't. My walls like decorated with art and stuff. It's like way more personal to me and my brand. But over time I've upgraded to 2 monitors for Twitch, and I now have 2 webcams for a very specific reason. My 1080 goes to the general public. My 720 is what feeds to people that I play with. So I have 2 cameras going at once on me. It's also helpful for DM prep as well. That way I can pick up what I'm like. If I'm writing something or drawing something or making a map, I can one camera, right? But that took time. I've been doing this now. I just bridged the 2-year mark, and I'm just now getting to this point.
Two monitors.
Two
for
monitors.
Sure, so.
Yeah.
All right, and James, you've already added a whole bunch of 2 cents. You don't mind?
I think there's a lot of 2 cents. Yeah.
There's too much 2 cents.
There's so much.
I think
There's no change at you.
Yeah.
So, well, what I want to go over real quick before we open up the Q&A is another thing you probably heard around here is there's a wide range of free software, free equipment, cheap equipment to more expensive equipment, but if you notice, Dot over there liked the way she sound through one specific mic over another. There's no one answer to anything that we tell you. It may not work for you specifically. That's something to keep in mind. There's not like, I've done hours of Googling and YouTubing, teaching myself how to do 1,000 different things. And sometimes it works well for me. Sometimes I'm like, that's the answer.
Yeah.
That will solve my problems. Nope, it does not.
There's always a bunch of ways to do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to just try stuff and decide what works best for you.
Yeah. So with that in mind, there's a lot of things we could cover. So I'm going to open up the Q&A. Please raise your hand. I will toss you the mic. I'm going to go back over here. So just toss it to each other. All right, you had your hand up first, and then.
Toss.
All right. Here you go.
Hi guys, I'm Nick. I help produce and star in our own podcast and my DM.
Very
and
cool.
What's the name of your
What's the
podcast?
podcast?
Well, it's Flipping the Table. We started in January.
Very
Flipping the
nice.
table.
All right,
you.
perfect.
All right.
My question is, and the biggest issue we've kind of had is for building community, since we're kind of newer to the online D&D and tabletop scene, what's really the greatest way to start out and reach out to other people, try and like collaborate on content and do all that kind of other community work just to expand your reach and also make some great friends?
Let me cut in real quick on that question, because I think I had the same when we started Loot and Dagger 2 years ago. First off, learn Twitter.
Twitter for
RPGs. Every day.
All the
Not
time.
Facebook, it's a black hole. Twitter.
Is where they are.
But I didn't know what to do, so I noticed these kids over here were in the same general area as me, and I literally just reached out to them. It was like shaky hands, like typing, like you don't know.
Hello.
You don't know who I think it might have been you reached out to me first. But
Yeah. Tiff was like, hey, there are other people that do D&D podcasts in Atlanta. I was like, what? We should have drinks, yo.
But I was like, why don't we meet up here at this bar and just chill? And I was
We just made
literally
friends.
we started building a community doing that within our shows. But it goes out from there.
I think the most important thing is you have to be bold. And you, one, it's cool to hear the word no. No is an okay word. Some people are never going to get back to you. Some people are going to say, no, we're not interested in partnering with a podcast of your size. Or no, we don't have a place for you right now. No is okay. So one. Two, I would say that you can't participate unless you reach out and start that process. So begin talking with people, but also recognize that if you're building a podcast, it's important before you start reaching out to other people and combining your work with theirs to build your own brand. You have to have a solid foundation, because when you come to them, what you're pitching to them is what you do.
Yeah.
So until you have a really strong stance of like who you are, like we had this struggle with NXNQ. It took us a long time to realize that we're not an actual play.
Yeah, we're not.
We are a storytelling podcast, which means we do a lot of editing. We add a lot of sound effects. It's not just about game mechanics. That made us unique. And once we found that, right, just like when I found my Little Red Dot brand, which is that I play indie RPGs and I tell stories from different perspectives, immediately it changed everything for me. So figure out who you are, what makes you unique, and get yourself together before you start reaching out to other people. I think that's just hugely important.
I think what really helped us, we did try and kind of like build a local podcaster community. We were like, we're all here together. Let's meet up. Let's swap stories. What are you doing? What am I doing? Let's start there. And we kind of built a little bit of a local community. And then it was a lot easier because you have those first few people you've like connected with, that it's a lot easier then to be like, hey, you over here, I love what you're doing. Let's chat. Let's do this. But with the community, I'd say don't only focus on people to listen to your show, but also focus on people that are your peers, because we now have like a wonderful community.
To that, Tiffany, I would say your peers aren't listening to your podcast.
No, they're not. Don't only focus on them. Please don't only focus on them.
Also, your family's not going to listen to your podcast.
No,
your best friends aren't going to listen to your podcast.
You're building a fresh
They'll
audience.
like everything.
Yeah, they will like everything, but they're not listening to it.
But it is helpful to have a small community at least to be like, I'm having issues, workshop
Yes.
this with me. Like, let's support each other, but at the same time, you really are trying to build like fans, and you should just be out there talk with them.
I want to inject because I want to, Jameson, Ed, what do you think about what you guys do to promote and sort of build a community for your various groups?
For us, I mean, one of our panelists is already on a popular podcast that I helped.
That helps.
I'm not gonna lie there. But basically, reach it out on social media, and also engage in your community.
Yep.
Board gaming is a very big community. You go to convention, meet people.
Right
Yay!
here. Yeah.
Welcome.
This is all
Use
outreach
hashtags.
here. This is how
I
you
don't even
meet
know why you
people
asked. It
who
looks like
may
you got
be
this.
interested.
Yeah, you're already pros. Why do you need us?
Yeah, it's the dreaded word. It's called networking.
Yeah.
Everyone does it. Everyone, even if you're trying to get audience members or other people that are your peers, it's networking. It's really all it is socializing. And we're nerds, and we don't do that so well sometimes. So it's a skill set we got to learn. What about you, Jameson?
Yeah, I would say that the one thing I would add would be inclusivity. Make sure that
Thank
everybody
you.
who
Yes.
finds your show feels welcome as a part of your
Yep,
community.
yep.
Very much so.
Yeah.
That 100%.
Yeah.
So if somebody finds your show and loves it, and they find your community based around your show, and they don't feel welcome, they will stop listening to your show.
Or they'll never
So
tell
make
you
sure
they
that they feel welcome no matter who they are, where they're coming from, and then they will remain a part of your show, and they will share it, and they will feel like they're a part of it, and that will grow your show.
Actually, it'll get even worse if they really don't like it. If it's toxic to them, they're going to be like, yeah, don't listen to these guys.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You'll get negative promotion. And I promise you, just starting out that kind of stuff, you don't have the clout to withstand that.
No.
You might as well just stop and do something else.
And make a place for this audience that you're building, this community, this inclusive community, to have a place to be more inclusive together. I hit a point where I was like, okay, Twitter's not working for me anymore. It's just a place where I blast when stuff goes live. So I created a Discord. It's huge. I have multiple hundreds of people in my Discord now, and I have a channel for every show that I run, every show that I'm part of, that's part of the Dot Lot. So that's what I call my community. So it's
Give 'em a
important.
place.
Yeah, give them a place
Give 'em
to
a place to
commune.
be.
Yeah, give them a place to commune.
We have a Discord too.
Yeah.
Facebook
So,
groups
place.
work.
I do want to get to some more questions. That was a fantastic question.
Yeah.
Thank you very, very much. So, but I know other people have more technical questions, and we're slowly running out of time. You had a question up there in the front? That gentleman right there.
Right there. Yeah.
And then we'll move backwards.
Hi, I have a question for Jamie and Tiffany. You said that you had a background in audio editing, and you said that you knew someone who did, and that there were some challenges with editing voices instead of, say, for music, and that you had to learn the steps to handle that.
Yeah.
What did you
Somewhat.
use to learn that, and what were those challenges?
So I'm going to be honest, and I work in IT, and I feel like most of my job is 90% Googling the answer for other people.
He's not wrong.
Yeah. Podcasting's just Googling.
And I think the same thing can be said for this. There is a huge difference between, say, for me, editing a guitar and editing a voice. And I really just Googled as much as I could on how do other people do it for narration specifically, because that's what we're doing. We're doing narration. So just to keep it short, I'd say I Googled it a lot. I Googled a lot of stuff.
Google everything. I would say listen to a lot of podcasts. See what you like. See the voice you like. Don't be afraid to change up what your podcast sounds like at any given moment, because all shows evolve. We started with Audacity, which is free, and now we use Reaper, which is paid. And it's a fantastic software, but there's a learning curve. So I would definitely say start with Audacity, start playing around. Just record yourself. Put a mic in front of yourself. Talk for 20 minutes. Take that audio, play with it.
Yep.
See what you hear, see how you sound, see how you can cut stuff, and just experiment.
Just dive into it.
A little thing that I've always heard, a little sage advice is, you start your first 5 episodes, throw them in the can.
I've heard that too,
Yeah, and it could be the first 20, it could be the first 100. It all depends on what you are, what you're trying to focus on, and what the quality you're trying to aim for, and if you can improve.
Don't let it stop you from releasing.
No.
Don't let the not feeling like you're perfect keep you from actually doing the thing, because all podcasts first 5 to 20 episodes don't sound as great as their 100th episode. That's just the nature of improving.
Critical Role, everyone. They started in some dude's living room
Yep.
with one camera and a mic, and those guys have money and talent.
Right.
So-
we all start somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, it's also, everyone thinks, Critical Role, oh, I can just do a D&D campaign.
Stop
No.
comparing yourself to other people.
Yeah.
Yes.
More
But
specifically,
also-
do not compare yourself to Critical Role.
Or the
And also
Adventure
realize,
Zone.
and
Ever.
also realize like that's been built over years,
yeah,
and
years.
even then they played the game for years well before they even started.
They're also professional voice actors.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a
and
different field.
Are you and your friends professional voice actors?
If you
are,
are-
I have a
No.
spot for you on my show.
Please see me after the panel.
Also, if you're already a successful podcaster, I have a spot for you on my show.
Again,
We
please see
need
me
more
after the show.
listeners. Thank
All
you.
right, let's move on to
Yeah.
another question. Well, there's some people in the back
Yeah.
that wanted
Yeah.
questions, and we're
That
running
guys.
out of time.
Oh, I didn't even. Oh my.
We could talk a
just
lot.
having so
I'm
much
sorry.
So
Yeah.
I think
I could
my
talk about this for another 3
question
hours.
falls into a similar vein as the last one. You mentioned earlier when editing audio, a lot of the technical bits that you had to learn. And do you have like a good resource for that? Because I can foresee like I'm going to edit this and I know I have this problem. Oh, I
Yeah.
should tweak this knob or move this slider.
Literally Google it.
Yeah,
Just
where do
Google
you
it.
get? Because the problem is, there's like they said, I don't want to get into the science of the audio spectrum of it, because you will learn the science of the audio spectrum if you Google it long enough. But every situation is different depending on where you are physically recording, how far away the person is.
The
to
type
the
of
microphone,
equipment,
the
the
type
space
of
you're
equipment.
in.
Software you're using.
So,
Software,
so
their
you can't
voice,
just
like-
say, I'm always going to put this slider up on the limiter. I'm always going to put this thing. I do, because I'm a creature of habit. So
Let me tell you guys, I don't
like
understand
certain
any
things.
of that. When
Yeah.
I do audio editing, I'm gonna be super
Yeah.
real here. I used to teach high schoolers. I taught a media arts class. Teaching high schoolers how to do an audio drama was one of the most eye-opening things. And what I realized is sliders, things like that don't matter. If you don't understand the bare minimum of this piece, go look at the autonomy, break apart a microphone,
Like what it
understand
looks
how
like.
sound works, and that has made all the difference in my sound. And then I'm like, well, it doesn't matter what knob I turn, because I understand that. I'll see you after if I can think about it. There's a great resource. I used it for my high schoolers. It's very simple. It's very easy to understand, and it's an online YouTube channel that's meant to teach kids how to record their own stuff. And it is like bare minimum, easy K through 12 understanding. And it's
Yeah.
so helpful.
Google.
One other thing is you're doing single channel or single
Oh,
track podcast versus a
Multi-track, yeah.
Right.
It's going to be a different editing tax.
Yep.
Yeah, and give yourself way more time than you ever thought you need to edit. We do multi-track, and I help my husband out because we mute the people who aren't talking, which means you have to go in and slice and cut and mute, and it takes so much longer. So just give yourself a lot of time and patience.
Lots of time.
On the time issue, this is my rule of thumb. If you recorded for an hour, you're going to be editing for 2 hours.
Yep.
At least. If you
Yeah.
really are trying to push that quality, now after a couple months or years of recording, you guys are really good at doing it. You're kind of in the zone, and there's not a lot of foibles and things you need to cut out. That will get a lot shorter, but still, you're gonna spend time, and that I hope you enjoyed that, because
Yeah.
you're
It's
gonna
your
be
life.
doing that.
It's your life now.
The only thing I'll
I
add
hope
to
you want to
that.
edit audio. It's your life now.
The only thing that I'll add to that is the only way to get better at the thing is by doing that
Do it.
thing.
Absolutely.
Like, do it. And if it's not perfect, release it. And
Yep,
if,
yep.
and eventually, by your 10th episode, you'll know things you don't know by your first. And by your 20th, you'll know things you didn't know. Just do it, and
Yeah.
you'll learn. And
Yeah.
you'll Google along the way,
Yeah.
and you'll learn by experience, and you'll learn by your audience's reactions and things like that. And that'll be your best teaching tool, honestly, is
And
experience.
you'll start to get a feel for, if you're highly editing, like how much raw audio do I need to get the length episode I want.
Yeah.
We record for an hour, we get about a 45-minute show. So just like you start to get that feel, and it all just takes doing it.
All right, we got time for probably 2 more questions. Who really
Get
want
some in
these
the
questions?
back over
Oh yeah,
there.
right over there in that back
Yeah.
corner over there.
Yeah,
Or you
somebody
gotta
knew.
fight each
somebody
other
knew.
for who's
Oh.
going to make the question
Listen, we're gonna
happen.
talk to you after them. Stop it.
All right, so my question is about I think it was kind of mentioned earlier about networking is like day zero audience. Group of people I'm with back home, we're in the process of starting a YouTube channel, and so our big thing is like day one, if you have no subscribers, like that video just kind of rots for a while, obviously, and I'm sure everybody goes through that. How do you generate kind of the buzz before you launch the first video?
Who here does YouTube? I don't know.
Okay, so YouTube is a very tricky little cookie. I can't honestly tell you that I've figured it out. So you need to create this. I tell people this: create events around what you want. it's not just a Twitter post. It's an event, right? So for example, I'm about to launch, I just paid for a lot of new emojis from this fantastic artist, right? Right now, in the month of September, Twitch is partnering with Subway for a giant sub month, right? Literally the sub month, and I want people to subscribe to my channel. So I made it an event. We're gonna have a subathon on my channel one day to get new subs to my channel, to get the new emotes out, and to build on something Twitch is already doing. So with your YouTube channel, when I launched to try to get subscriptions, it was an event. Literally, I went live on Twitch, or I went live on Twitter, or I went live on my Discord, and I chatted all day. And every time somebody subscribed to my YouTube, I tweeted their name out. Instant, right? You have to build this hype, and it can't just be like, hey guys, we launched a YouTube channel, go subscribe. You got to have a whole lot more than that. I've learned over the years, so marketing is my first love. Somebody must make 12 touch points with your product before they're going to buy or subscribe. You have to hit them 12 times. That means not one tweet, 12 tweets, and a Facebook post, and like, I don't know, maybe a shout out to the universe. Like you have to get content
tap
to
on
them.
their window at their house. You gotta be like, hey, hey,
Would you like to listen to a podcast?
Yeah.
This is my podcast.
And YouTube
That's
now has
legit.
a really cool thing where you can watch things with them live. So when you first put a product up, you can create an event and everybody goes to your YouTube channel at once, and now you can all watch the same
like a
content
premiere.
live. It's a premiere.
Yeah.
That's a great way to build that kind of hype. And consider things that you do for your subscribers that you don't do for anybody else.
I would say, so podcast friends of ours, the Broadswords, when they were launching their podcast, again, this is podcast, I don't 100% know YouTube, but what I thought they did really well is that they hyped up the launch of the podcast for like 3 months beforehand. They picked it like the day they're gonna launch, and then they were on Twitter and they were hyping and connecting and being like, it's coming. So like you wanna build that sense of excitement for people to show up on the day.
Make it an event.
Yeah.
Ed and Jameson, anything to contribute to that?
I mean, think of it almost like say in the board game world, you want to know what the community's doing.
Yep.
They say there's International Tabletop Day.
Yeah.
Have something that you're going to be doing for International Tabletop Day, just so you can be tuned into that community.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would just say that the hype of the product is as good as the quality of the product. Like, focus also on just producing something good, and the creating the marketing around that will help it, of course. But as long as the show itself is good, it will. As long as you sustain that marketing, it will attract its audience.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It takes time.
My only piece of advice before we go to our last question is, if you're starting out new and you don't have all these events and you don't know what to do, here's the kicker: consistency.
Yes.
If you want to start a community, you've got to pick yourself a schedule. It doesn't matter if it's every week, every 2 weeks. I do every 2 weeks, but I put other content out between those weeks. Consistency will start drawing people in because they go, this is a serious person. This person wants that thing, and that's what they will gravitate to your sincerity. So we can take one more question, lightning fast, and then we're gonna have to close out.
There's like one more. Yeah. Give me.
What mic brands would you recommend for audio recording?
Mic brand?
Yes.
Depends
Whatever
what
works.
you want to do. Yeah. What's your budget? What do you want to do? It
we
gets
use
really
Shure.
specific.
I
Yeah,
am
we use
partial
Shure.
to Sennheiser. I like Blue. Most people like Blue Yeti. I've actually used to use a whole lot of the other Blue lineup. I just love the way they looked. And
They're very
to be
bulky.
honest, they look really fun. But I like the Sennheiser series, dynamic mics.
we use
I use a lot of
Shures.
Shores.
Yeah.
I have the brand I use is CAD, which is mostly meant actually for musicians, but I'm a voiceover actor, and I find that mics meant for musical instruments pick up my voice so much better than any. So that took me some time, but I use a company called CAD, and I love them.
I would throw Audio Technica in there too.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So the bottom line, I think, there's tons of them. Find out what works. YouTube
you
them.
need.
People have YouTube videos of just the reviews, and you can hear what they're doing.
Probably my favorite YouTube video. I don't know. I'm not gonna be able to say the name of it because I don't remember the name. But it's this guy who just does microphone reviews.
Yep.
And he'll just sit there and he'll say, "I like it, but here's 5 minutes of me talking through this microphone,
So you can hear
what it
it,
sounds
yeah.
like.
You,
Yeah.
you knew it. And also,
Yeah.
voices are different for different mics. You may actually need different mics for different people.
Yes.
Because they do different things. The technical aspect of them is kind of specific.
Yeah, it's really hard to give just a blanket microphone.
Google
I'm
is your
sorry.
friend.
Yeah, Google. Just
Google.
Just Google
This is
it.
actually
Welcome
a
to
panel
the
about
panel.
Googling.
Welcome to the bando about Google this yourself.
Google this.
The only thing I'll add is that it's just been dependent on your environment. We talked
Yeah.
about it a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
Like if you're in a closet full with audio foam on the walls, then it's a different mic than if you're in a kitchen or something like that.
Or out in the wild.
They'll
Gosh,
pick,
yes.
they'll pick up different echoes. They'll pick up different ambience.
Yeah.
They'll be more focused. They'll be more bassy. They'll be different. That way.
Yeah.
I'm really sorry we don't have a good answer for you, and that's the biggest kicker that people run into. They're like, I'm going to do this thing, and there's just not one answer that will solve your
Yeah.
problem.
I will say the biggest that if you take nothing else away from this, consistency and passion will get you through
A lot.
pretty much
A hell lot.
everything. So pick a schedule,
Oh,
stick with
yeah.
it, and the passion will help keep you through the parts when you're tired and you've been editing for 7 days and you have to get it out. Like, it's hard. There's a lot of abandoned projects out there.
I would
Yeah.
also suggest it's going to be really hard to do this. You're not going to do this your first month or two, and I probably did it way too long for about a year. But statistics, everyone's podcasts blow up in different ways, and statistics aren't the whole story of the people listening to your show.
Don't chase the audience.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Find what you love, because if you chase the audience, you will burn yourself out to a crisp.
Yeah. They will find you if you're truly passionate.
You'll end up hating what you're doing. But we got to get out of here. So before we get out of here, we got to do a couple quick things. I will give everyone a time to give your social media plugs and all that fun stuff. But right now, to let everyone know, the official charity of DragonCon 2019 is the American Heart Association. If you text to 44321 AHA 2019, you will give you a text to how to donate directly to the American Heart Association. DragCon will match up to $100,000 this year. So please pull out your phones. Please consider giving out some money, $1, $2, doesn't matter. Help some people out. And again, I want to thank all the panelists for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you to the audience. Thank you for the audience for being great. All right, we will start with at that end. James, where can people find you?
All right, so you can find me by Googling me. There you go. Next one. No,
Nailed it.
literally, you could probably find by Googling me, but I am at Twitter at Holy Stiver. It's pretty easy to remember. I think of the name. Holy Diver. It's a Holy Stiver. I've really taken that to heart. So
Perfect.
you can find me there. I am on 2 podcasts, but if you find me on my Twitter, I'm just blasting out what podcasts I'm on all the time.
Which are what, James?
Which are the Loot and Dagger podcast and Stellar Arcanum podcast. And I guessed for these guys.
Yeah,
North
that's
by
right.
Northwest.
He shows up
So-
with us sometimes.
Also, I'm Little Red Dot. You can find me on pretty much any social media as well as Twitch as little_red_dot, where I run a large tabletop community called the Dot Lot, and we have a deep passion for storytelling. And and in a very inclusive environment for LGBTQ. So that's my spiel. That's where you can find me.
Perfect. I'm Tiffany. I'm on North by Northquest. You can find us at northbynorthquest.com or at NXNQuest on all the socials and all the podcast feeds.
I am on Twitter at BioImportance. You can look up my podcast, Polyhedron. Again, it's an RPG discussion podcast. That's really, or you can go to at PolyhedronCast. That's the actual show's Twitter handle if you want to talk to me directly there.
We are With Game First. We are on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at With Game First or at withgamefirst.com.
Yeah.
I'm part of the Dungeons and Randomness podcast, which is 7 years running. Just started its first episode of Arc 3 last night, which you can download and get a fresh new start. I also publish comics under the name Bad Neighbor Comics, which you can search on Twitter, Instagram, and Etsy. So.
Yes. Thank you all. Everyone have a very good DragonCon.
We have business cards if you need them.
Yeah, come grab a business card. Come chat. We'll go outside.